Hey guys, it's Quinn. Today in part 1 of a 2-part video of the top 5 Bond fights for each individual Bond. Today we're taking a look at Sean Connery, George Lazenby, and Roger Moore. To give you a little context to why I'm doing this list, back when I had, I believe, something around 20 subscribers, I made a video about the top 10 Bond fights. And someone recommended me, hey Quinn, you should do one about each individual Bond. And because I thought that was such a hard list, I decided to make that as a subscriber special sometime in the future. And I never thought I'd get up to 200, but seeing that I was starting to get subscribers fast, I decided to put this one to 300. And I just want to say thank you for recommending this one. I think this will be a fun one to do. And maybe I'll just get into it. The criteria is basically no car chases, no vehicle chases, but besides that, just any sort of fight. And there will be sort of exceptions, but we'll talk about that as we come. And let's just start off with Sean Connery. Number 5, Dr. No and Dr. No. The reason I really like this fight, and I believe it was an honorable mention in my top 10 Bond fights of all time, the reason I like this is because although I feel it could have been a little better, this movie was such small budget, and having this sort of fight where you can tell they're evenly matched, but when it comes down to the end of it, the reason Dr. No dies is because of his hands, and I just really like that they added that element to it, and I just think it's really cool. Number 4, Largo and Henchman and Thunderball. Now, I know I've made a lot of fun of this end fight in the past, but that isn't this fight. I've been making fun of the underwater bit, and I really like this on top bit, although the addition of the boat going at 1,000,000 miles an hour is kind of stupid, and it kind of ruins the scene a little bit. I really enjoy the fight itself. They just kept inside the boat. It's a really cool fight and really well done. I think that's what makes it just such a cool fight and good climax. Number 3, Volcano Raid and Hans, You Only Live Twice. Now this fight is just really cool, and I think it's more grand than basically any other fight on this list, and I just think it's so well done. They really use the set well, and I've done a review of You Only Live Twice pretty recently, so you can see my views on that in that video. It's just, I think this fight just really showcases it well. Number 2, Red Grant from Russia with Love. Now, I know I've talked about this one a zillion times, so I don't want to spend too much time in it, but it really just is a fantastic fight. I think this and number 1 are some of the best fights in the series, and I've talked about it so much I don't want to hover on it. It's a great fight. Before we get into top pick, let's take a look at a few honorable mentions.
It's very dangerous to fire guns in planes. I even had to warn Pussy about it.
Number 1, Job Goldfinger. Now this is just a really awesome fight, and I believe this was my number 1 pick for the best fight in the Bond series, and although that is debatable, I will stand with it for right now because it's just so well done. It's so elegant. It takes everything from the fight and from Russia with Love and just makes it more grand with a tougher henchman, which is almost impossible to say seeing as you have Red Grant, and it just is the best fight of the Sean Connery era. Next, let's take a look at George Lazenby. Number 5, the ski chases. I think these are really well done, and George Lazenby went on record as saying the stunt double that did the skiing for him, it was one of the most unbelievable things he's ever seen. I completely agree. Some of the things this guy does is absolutely incredible, and the only reason it isn't higher is because they're not actually fighting. But I felt I had to include it here because it's just so cool and well done. Number 4, the henchman room fight. This one I completely forgot about, which kind of sums up the George Lazenby era if you think about it. if this was in any other era or movie, if you think about it, if this is in GoldenEye, this would have been like my jam. And the only reason I came across this is because I was looking for clips for the Bell Tower fight, and I saw this, and I replaced the two. I just think this is a really awesome fight. That's all I can describe it as. It's awesome. Number 3, Piz Gloria Raid. The reason I like this one so much is on one end you have Tracy busting her balls against a henchman, and on the other end you have Bond busting open a door. It's just awesome to see the two fight each other, well, fight at the same time. And the reason I like it also is because they have the Bond themes blaring in the background the entire time. It's really cool to listen to. You see Tracy be a badass, and this is one of the reasons she's one of my favorite Bond girls, and overall it's just a really cool and well done scene. Number 2, On Her Majesty's Secret Service pre-title sequence. This is just an overall awesome fight, and I think it's one of the better pre-title sequences in the series. And although it doesn't really introduce who George Lazenby is as a character, because later we find out he's more, I guess, innocent, that's how I describe him, but this is just a really cool showcase and totally gets you into the mood with George Lazenby. Number 1, Battle with Blowfold. I think this is one of the coolest fights in the series and really uses the scenario in which they're in really well. I feel like because they're in this situation, it makes the fight feel a lot more intense and adds a lot of elements like the tree, which just makes the whole fight feel a lot more interesting. I like how they did all of this in one scene and just made it keep going. And strong editing, which is just perfect for the scene. Just overall, it's really well done. Number 5, the Yo-Yo Chainsaw and Octopussy. Now this one was a really tough choice because there's 7 Roger Moore films, and so it's really hard to decide which ones make the cut. And I decided this one has to be in because of how the dynamic of Bond and Octopussy are working together to fight these guys. You realize that Octopussy, can hold her own in a fight. You see good old Roger Moore in his old state doing it well, and it's just awesome. Number 4, Fight with Zorn, A View to a Kill. This one's really cool because I feel like normally if they were just on land, this would have been a weak fight. But because they added the element of being on top of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is absolutely huge, it just makes everything feel a lot more dangerous. You feel like one wrong step and they'll be doomed. And I just think it's really that element that makes this fight great. Number 3, Moonraker pre-title sequence, or the free fall, however you like to call it, in Moonraker. This one's just so awesome because I believe it took over 500 takes for them to do this one scene. It's just so cool and grand, and by far the best scene in the movie. And although this movie is known in the Bond series for having great special effects, this just simplicity of, Bond fighting midair for a parachute is just so cool. Number 2, Submarine Raid, The Spy Who Loved Me. This one's just awesome because for me, it's like the volcano raid and You Only Live Twice, but in the Roger Moore era. And Roger Moore, everything's bigger, grander, and more campy, and that's what this scene is. It's absolutely awesome. Everything about it's just so well done. You have so many explosions and deaths, I guess, but Roger Moore's kicking ass the entire time. I love how there's just a huge submarine in the middle. The set's absolutely incredible. And it's just the best scene in one of the best Bond movies ever. And before we get into our top pick, let's take a look at a few honorable mentions. Number 1, The Duel of Scaramanga, The Man with the Golden Gun. This one, on my top 10 fights of all time, was really close to being number 1. I think this fight's just absolutely awesome because you have the elements of From Russia with Love with, two equals, Plus, you have the idea that they're both great gunmen. You just see them just spying each other out, and they're both very smart, and they know what they're doing. That's why I like it so much, because they're constantly just playing a cat and mouse game the entire time. Scaramanga, the way he always wins his duels by outsmarting them, but Bond knows just as much, and that's why it's so much fun to watch. And although the ending is just perfect, it's perfect, everything leading up to it is just as good as well, and that's why it's my personal favorite fight of the Roger Moore era. Next time, we'll look at Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.